Okay, good. Should be recording now. And yeah, you guys can see my screen, right? Sometimes there's a few issues, so just to check. Okay, I think that if you can't see it might be on your end then. I'm not sure. But it'll be recorded anyway, so you can watch it on there if you have to. But cool. I guess I'll get started. Right, so yeah, last week we didn't have too much happen. Of course, the week before we had such a big expansion lower, so we kind of expected lower probability price action, and you can see here how it's just there's pretty much no gaps being made. Where is it? Oh no, yeah, there's no gaps being made, daily gaps. It's just a pretty low probability week, to be honest. It's just lots of wicks, but to kind of start the week off, we didn't pay attention to Monday because we only want to pay attention to Monday on the days when there is SMT between Monday and Friday. So all of the assets took Friday's high. So we did nothing. We just let it do its thing, and we had a pretty big new week opening up form, and we traded back into it, and we did return lower. And if we go into the 30-minute time frame, if you wanted to have an entry here, I believe there's a 30-minute. This was a precision candle on the 30-minute chart. So you could have looked at this if you were looking for a trade on Monday. But of course, we did nothing. When we see that there's no weekly cycle sequential SMT between Friday and Monday, then we don't pay attention. Then we started trading from Tuesday. And on Tuesday, I took a trade on Tuesday, and we had a weekly cycle sequential SMT. We had a weekly cycle sequential SMT between Monday and Tuesday. So on where am I looking? Oh yeah, so YM failed to take previous day low. Oh, I'm bugging out. Where's my trade? Just check. So it was him. So we took. Oh no, slide. Where's Monday's high? So on YM we took previous day high. Therefore, drop previous day high on all the assets. We had YM take our previous day high at the start of new game. So this was that weekly cycle sequential SMT. That's stage one. So we know, and as I said in the model walkthrough video, that we need 2 stages to take a trade. So this is stage 1, and we can assign number 3 to this. And then after that, we need the second stage. And I believe the second stage for the trade on Tuesday was the 90-minute sequential SMT. So we go on to the 5-minute chart. We go to Tuesday. And if I draw, this is the high. Where's the high? This is the high of the second quarter of the New York AM. And the same here. And then the same here. So you can see YM gave us a failure swing, and NQ and ES both took this high. and we pumped up at open, and this was at 9:30 manipulation higher. And then the short that we took was from 21,014. So if I go to Tuesday, the short that I took at least was, I believe, a 1 minute PSP, and I think it was this one. Yeah, no, it was this one here. So this is where we took the trade. So entry was here, and we put our stop at the high of this 1 minute PSP. And then the target was these lows here. I believe it was these. Yeah, this was the target, and this played out. Now the reason I think a lot of people ended up trying to short here is because of this idea of fractal PSPs. When you're using a 1 minute PSP, you can't use a 1 minute PSP on its own. In the first live stream that we went over, which is on what the recording, we talk about how real PSPs, they're fractal. And what I mean by fractal PSPs is it's multiple PSPs happening on different time frames at the same time. So in this example, this 1 minute PSP formed at 9:50. And at 9:50, well, at 10 a.m., we know that the 4-hour candle closes. So we know that the 4-hour candle closes, and then so we can have a look at the 4-hour chart, and you can see here how this was a 4-hour PSP. So it's obvious that a 4-hour PSP was going to form when you're looking at it 10 minutes before, right? NQ was trading all the way up here, and YM was trading all the way down here. So we know that a 4-hour PSP is going to form soon, right? So the idea is we catch the top of the 4-hour PSP. We catch the top wick. That's the whole idea of a 1 minute PSP. If we're trading within a 15-minute PSP and it's closing in 3 minutes, there's a wick at every single candle, right? So we want to catch the bottom or top of that wick, and we can use the 1 minute PSP to do so. I believe there's also a 1-hour PSP that formed here. With YM. So it's another 1-hour PSP, and that was closing in 10 minutes. So we had a 4-hour PSP and a 1-hour PSP forming. And if I'm not mistaken, there was also a 15-minute PSP forming here, closing in about 10 minutes. So we have this 15-minute PSP here as well. So, but bearish on NQ and bullish on ES and YM. So it's predicting these PSPs to form on the higher time frames and using the 1 minute PSP to catch the top of that higher time frame PSP wick. So that's the whole idea behind these 1 minute PSPs, and that's why we can get these entries like this with such small stop losses, because I think a lot of people, they did enter this trade, but what happened is they would enter after this inversion fair value gap, for example, and they would end up shorting down here with a stop this big, and maybe they would end up closing, or they would end up moving their stop lower down somewhere like this for a better RR, but then get stopped out before the move happens. So if you want to use a 1 minute PSP, you need to be focusing on all of the time frames and seeing what PSPs are forming where. It's really important that you do that. And this is the kind of way of filtering which 1 minute PSPs are going to work. Cool. So that was Tuesday. There's a 2-stage between the weekly cycle sequential SMT and then a 90-minute sequential SMT. And one thing I want to add as well is that at this time, this line here, turn this off, this line here is a 2-week open. You see at 9:45, 10 a.m. when we took the trade, NQ is trading above the 2-week open, but then ES is trading below the 2-week open, and YM is trading well below the 2-week open, and that is a cracking correlation with true opens there. So that's additional confluence that we can be looking at. But I'll go on to Wednesday now. I think a lot of you may have saw that I said that I'm going to stop using NKD, and the reason I'm going to stop using NKD is because it led me to miss this entire move here, which was pretty sad. But it's because that was giving bullish signals. Although this is the main triad here was giving bearish signals, and it's these three that we should be focusing on rather than NKD. So the move that happened, it was because we had 2 weekly cycles on S&Ts, I believe. So ES at the end of Tuesday took out Monday's high, and we had a failure swing here. So this is 1 weekly cycle squash S&T. We then have NQ taken out on Wednesday, giving us a failure swing on Wednesday with previous day high. Although ES and YM are both taking out the previous day high. So this is another weekly cycle sequential SMT. So we have 2 weekly cycle sequential SMTs on the highs. This is our first stage. And to confirm it, we need the second stage, which on Wednesday may have been, I believe it looks like it was a daily cycle sequential SMT. So if we go to the 15-minute chart, because that's the correct time frame alignment. And I have the time frame alignment written down in the FAQ section. And so we have a failure swing at London high on NQ, failure swing with ES, and a failure swing on YM at London high. So this is the second stage, and this is the one shot, one kill model, where we have a weekly cycle sequential SMT followed by a daily cycle. Confirming these, if we look at our PSPs now, here we have, that's a 1 hour PSP. This could have been your first entry. Also happened here is a SMT fill. So if I draw this inversion fair value gap here, the same one here. Am I looking at the wrong thing? Maybe wrong one. It's this. So we have this 1 hour gap here that we traded into. We have the same 1 hour gap here. Hold on a minute. What am I looking at? Oh yeah, okay. And then on NQ, I mean YM, we have no 1 hour gap forming. So this makes this even higher probability. And we have this 1 hour PSP form here. So this could have been an entry that you took within London. So this may have been simply just entering here with your stop at the 1 hour PSP high. This could have been the first entry. We were then offered another opportunity. I believe the trade that we should have taken, or I should have taken at least, was here. So we had 8:30 news, and we had at 8:30 news give us a precision candle on NQ, and we had a precision swing point on ES, I believe. Or am I bugging out again? I'm bugging out again. It was here. Never mind. Okay, yeah. So we had a doji candle form here I think a lot of people like to use dojis as a PSP as well. So this was a PSP before the 8:30 news, which is why this wick was not taken up, given it was a PSP. And then we had a precision candle form here with, where is it? Here, this was a precision candle with YM. So this candle here, you could have seen this and looked for lower prices as well. But of course then 9:30 it just dumped. So what you could have looked for as well was where is it? This is what I was looking at. So on the 30-minute time frame, we have a precision candle, 8:30, precision candle, precision swing point with yes. See, we trade into the wick and trade lower. So this here could have been an entry. And you can see how there would have been a lower time frame SMT here. This would be a turtle soup on a lower time frame on ES. And this could have been an entry you took. Yeah, if that makes sense. So the 30-minute time frame is something definitely that I would recommend you all pay attention to. And then from there we had the 2 stages that we already needed. We had everything already happening, all the cracks of correlations. We also have this crack and correlation, not with the true open. I think it was with something else, but there was no need for 9:30 to manipulate. We had everything already happen, and so we just distributed lower, with the draw being Monday's low. So a trade you could have taken, if we go into maybe the lower time frame, and we see this failure swing here. This was also a 5-minute PSP. Within the 30-minute PSP, we have this, and we see that this holds. You could have entered somewhere in here, maybe on the 1-minute time frame, and then we move lower. Cool. And then here, another 5-minute PSP. This candle here. So that was Wednesday. We had 2 weekly cycles, which SMTs on the highs, followed by a 1-hour PSP and then a 30-minute PSP. And we had the daily cycles, which SMT, confirming these. Right. Then Thursday was a bank holiday, so we didn't pay attention to that either. And you can see the amount of volume that was here. It was nothing. It was just such small, no volatility at all. And then Friday was interesting. So the original trade that I took was the 9:30 manipulation, but this move that we had higher was because we had a weekly cycle sequential SMT, which was pretty difficult to see. But PDL of Thursday would have been this. This is previous data of Thursday. And it's not the lowest point. It's not the lowest candle. It's the lowest swing point within the quarter that we're looking at. We have the same here. And then we have this here. So we have YM giving us a failure swing on Thursday's low. And we have a stop punt here. Well, this is Thursday's low, isn't it? My bad. But yeah, we have a stop punt. on these. So we had also, yeah, and then we had a 90 minutes sequential SMT to confirm this, which was this, which I hope you guys can see, paired with a 5-minute PSP, confirming this, which is also a TPD, which I've spoken about before as well. So we have this 5-minute PSP wick that we trade into and then go higher. So that was the move that we were given on Friday. And we were, this is the move that we were looking for, but instead, well, the trade I took and the one I alerted was this. So we had a 2 daily cycle sequential SMTs. So first, it's between Asia and London. So this is Asia high. And this is Asia high. We have a failure swing on NQ and a stop hunt on ES. And this was one stage, and then we had London high here, and then we had London high on YM being taken out. So this was 2 daily cycle sequential SMTs. And then we had a 90-minute cycle sequential SMT prior to 9:30 open, which was here. And this also happened to be a 30-minute SMT fill. So when we had this 90-minute sequential SMT, it happened to align with a 30-minute SMT fill, which was a continuation lower, and that's how we caught this move here. That's why we shorted after this inversion fair value up here with a stop at the high, targeting this low. And this was the trade on Friday. And then I did not take this long because of the fact that we already had a win and we don't want to risk our capital. So that was kind of price action this week. It's pretty boring, not much to talk about since it's bank holiday week, and we also had that expansion on the previous week. But nothing's random. So even on these low probability days, price is still following the algorithm and our cracks and correlations. So every day is tradable, but then of course we still need to manage our risk and preserve our capital. So that means not trading on bank holidays. It means not trading on Mondays where we have no SMT. So the whole idea, our whole job as traders is to preserve our capital. That's the most important thing. But anyway, moving on to next week. If I look at daily time frame, I'll get rid of these. We had last week's objectives being taken. So last week, the last live stream, we called for this high being taken out on ES. We wanted this high being taken out on YM. And it was this volume, this new day opening gap here being filled. And we had all of our targets being met. For next week, what I would have my eyes on is lower prices. If on Monday we end up taking Friday's high, so Monday if we take this high here on all assets, which is what I imagine will happen, or YM may give us a failure swing, I would anticipate that we get a failure swing on this high from NQ. And then by taking Friday's high on ES, which will also be the previous week high, this will be a monthly cycle sequential SMT, priming us to send us lower for all of these smooth lows down here. So my draw for next week, especially with all of the news that we have with NFP, we've got a lot of red folder news. I would want to see this being taken. So we could potentially see a Wednesday low of the week, Wednesday or Thursday low of the week with a TGIF on Friday, given if we have a SMT between Thursday and Friday. And we have NFP on Friday, which may send us back into our weekly range. So that's something that we should be paying attention to. So Monday we may see higher prices. Tuesday, well, we'll see. SMT will tell us where we want to go. But I would like a failure swing on this high here. So I would not expect NQ to take this, because I no longer believe that this high will be taken. And then we'll see a monthly cycle sequential SMT between all of these assets. And then lower, because these lows here look extremely good to be taken next week. So I would expect these all to be taken in one go, and this will be the draw. Because we also had a hidden monthly cycle sequential SMT here. We had this. This is hidden. So this is monthly cycle sequential SMT on the lows, and I would like to see a monthly cycle sequential SMT on the highs, giving us that magneto lower. So ES to take previous week high, YM to take previous week high, potentially, or we may get a failure swing there, and NQ to not take previous week high and send us lower to 20382. And potentially these new week opening gaps resting below it. And if you like to trade market maker models, this here can be seen as a potential original consolidation, and we may be within a market maker sell model right now. But we don't use those really. We pay attention to cracks and correlations because that's what we know as, well, that's how we know the market to move. The market will reverse when there are cracks and correlations of equal to or greater magnitude to cracks and correlations on the opposing side. So monthly cycle sequential SMT. If we get YM failing to take Friday's high as well, which may happen given how far away it's closed from its high, a realistic scenario would be ES taking this, NQ taking this but not this, and YM taking nothing. And that would be a weekly cycle sequential SMT with a monthly cycle sequential SMT. And we have news on Monday as well at 10 a.m. So you can very well see a very bearish candle form next week. But there are no gaps really to look for. The only thing we can look at is this weekly inversion fair value gap. So this is definitely somewhere that price can return to, and we have this low resting inside of that. So this is definitely something that we can look at. And then, as I mentioned in the last live stream, we have, I think we have, where is it? This candle here. We have this doji candle on, it's not doji, is it? This is a bearish candle on YM and bullish on AQ and EF. So this is a weekly precision swing point, and we know that these hold a lot of liquidity. So when the time is right, these equal lows will be an extremely strong draw. And we know that there's a lot of macro events happening at the moment regarding Russia, Ukraine, all these wars. That could be the kind of catalyst that gives us this huge drop, this kind of recession. time will tell. So that's the kind of weekly outlook for next week. We expect this low to be taken on NQ, and I would imagine that ES and YM take these as well. It's more likely for ES to. YM, I don't expect really. We'll see. But NQ, ES, these are the draws. And YM will probably give us a failure swing given how far away it is. But cool. That's the kind of weekly outlook for next week. Has anyone got any questions on that before we get on to kind of more general Q&A? Does that all make sense? No questions? Cool. Right, so we can do a little Q&A now if anyone has any questions. But I've also got some questions from, if I just get them out, I've got some questions from someone that they wanted me to answer. So if no one has any questions, I'll just do those. How do you keep track of multiple time frame PSPs? So, no, I don't have an indicator. The only indicators I use are I think it's 2 degrees, this quarterly theory indicator, and the new week opening gap, new day opening gap indicators. Keep track of them. It's just, you can have, if you've got multiple monitors, that will help. I've got 2, and you can have different tabs open if you have premium, TradingView Premium, which I hope you guys bought on Black Friday, and you can just switch between those and you can see. But a lot of the times, it's pretty obvious, so you don't need to switch between time frames too fast when you can see how much price is diverging on these assets. It's pretty obvious to see when a PSV will happen. So I guess it's just flicking through. Yeah, no indicator, I guess, if that makes sense. How do I enter a PSP candle? Do you wait for it to close and then market order in, or do you wait for a third candle to fall? So, me personally, I enter on the close of the PSP candle. So I enter as soon as the PSP candle forms. If it ends up getting taken out, or I'll put my stop loss at the high or low. But if it ends up getting taken out, that's why we give ourselves 2 opportunities. So if we see that maybe the next candle closes within the wick, then I'll try again, I guess, and put my stop at the high or low of that candle. But I'll enter, for example, say if this is a 1 minute chart, say if here, for example, if this is a PSP here, this is a 1 minute PSP. So I would have, given that we have all of the right things happening, I would enter here, I'll put my stop loss here, and then target whatever, right? Then we ended up getting stopped out. But this is still a PSP it's still valid, right? It's still a PSP. So what I would do is I would just enter straight again. I guess if that makes sense. It is a bit riskier, which is, yeah, so there's a risk of it turning into a precision candle, not a precision swing point. That wasn't a very good example, to be honest. But yeah, I usually just enter straight away because there are times when price doesn't return into the wick of the precision swing point. It might just end up running straight away without you. So I enter straight away. I put my stop at, say if it's a bullish or say if it's the swing high that the PSP is, I'll put my stop at the high of the wick, and then if it ends up being a precision candle but we still trade lower, that's why we give ourselves 2 chances. So 2 losses and then you're done for the day. And that's all. It's coming back to that capital preservation being our number 1 role, is that we have to be able to be disciplined to stick to just our rules with just 2 losses, for example. Does that answer your question? Cool, no problem. So I'll just quickly answer the questions that I was asked to go over. So first one was about SMT with true opens. So essentially, well, what it is, it's when we have one asset trading below a true open or above, and the other one doing the opposite. So here we could have a true open here. We could also have, and our true open could be here. You can see here, this is trading below our true open and this is trading above our true open. And that's the cracking correlation, right? There's so many different types of cracks and correlations. And it's simply just when one asset does something the other one doesn't. You know, we have all these cracks and correlations that are all just going to be additional confluences. So for me, this is not going to count as a stage. Same as a PSP. I don't count these as stages in our model. So we need 2 sequential SMTs, if that makes sense. But these are all just additional confluence. And I'll go over some examples of this. I'll try and find some examples. Maybe I'll just use the true session open. There'll be more examples on that. Okay. So true session open. No, true day open maybe. So this is true day open Friday. True day open. Then we have true day open here. So put this in. And here you can see that we had this daily cycles conscious SMT here, right? And then ES traded above the true day open and Q failed to. And then what happened? ES dumped and Q traded lower as well. I can draw out here as well. So we have true day open here. And this is that cracking correlation between true opens. So we have NQ failing to trade above it, and the SNYM trading above the true open. But you guys need to get to the point where you don't have to write all of this out. The only kind of stuff I have in my charts are just the 2 week open really, and then I'll refer to the new week opening gaps, new day opening gaps as well. That's all I really have on my charts. Not too much kind of lipstick on the charts because it's all going to confuse you. You just need to keep everything simple and clean. And I think the issue with most people is that they're not doing the work required. They're looking for these shortcuts. I always get questions from, what's this? Can you show me this or whatever? You guys are finding too many shortcuts. You need to go into the charts yourself, and that's when you're truly gonna understand the stuff, when you look for it yourself instead of getting someone else to do it for you. I think most people are trying to do this the easy way, but there's no way around it. You need to just sit down in front of your charts, back test, understand these concepts, forward test, tape read. I think a lot of people are trying to skip the difficult stuff. And I think that's why so many people lack conviction, because the only proof that they have of the concepts they're using working is someone else telling them it's going to work. You need to go back and see it for yourself, because at the end of the day, the best teacher is the charts themselves. The charts will not lie to you. everyone has the same charts in front of them, and you need to study it yourself to gain conviction, and that's how you progress, instead of just getting someone else to do the work for you. Just, you have to do the work yourself. So that's something that I wanted to add. You guys really need to just sit there and just grind. I mean, it does take a lot of sacrifices with it, but if you really want to make it in this game, that's what has to be done. But cool. That was the first example. I think that should be enough. I mean, other than that, it's just going back and seeing it for yourself. The next question is about defining ranges. So a DFR, or defining range, it's a dynamic support and resistance. What it is when we split the first quarter into thirds. And when Day kind of mentioned this, it's when I realized that maybe quarters aren't the only time cycles there are. There will very well be thirds. There might be something called sequential SMD, but between thirds, not quarters. There's lots of different time cycles, and I think it's something that Day might not be outwardly teaching, but giving us hints to. So, defining range. This would be the weekly defining range. So we have Monday, we split into 3. So it's 3 8-hour segments. So it would be from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. It would be 6 p.m. 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. Yep. So this gives us 3 thirds. We ignore the first third, and then we're left with T2 and T3, and we draw a range from T2 and T3. And this is what the defining range is. So this is a defining range here. And the way we can use it is standard deviations, for example. And it's not something that I really look at in terms of my day-to-day kind of trading. I don't really pay attention to it much, but it is a good way to kind of gauge your drawn liquidity. So for example, the defining range of last week would have been here to here. You can see that this is being traded to perfectly, and then we refer back to the defining range. So you can refer back to it, not just on the same week, but in the week after. So this may give us another reason as to why, if I draw the defining range again, as to why this low that I said in the outlook might be taken, because it lines up with this week's standard deviation of the defining range. So that's another thing that another reason we could potentially see this low being taken. The last question is examples of entries after SMT confirmations. For example, with PSPs, inversion fair value, that sort of other things, I have problems to place my stop. So I'll just go over a few trades. So I'll go over Tuesdays. I'll go over Tuesday's trade, yeah. I mean, I think I should go over Friday, because we've already done Tuesday. It's Friday. It was inversion fair value, yeah. Stop at this high. And the reason my stop was at this high, not just because it was just the most logical place to put my stop, but I believe if we go onto other time frames, for example, I believe this is also PSP. So PSPs are really good ways to kind of put your stop. So yeah, this was a 5-minute PSP here with YM. So we're closing bullish on YM. And when I see this PSP form, we would not expect this high to be taken. So we put our stop loss there. We put our stop losses in places where we don't expect price to go. Where if it goes there, it invalidates a trade idea. So if this PSP was invalidated as a PSP and turned into precision candle, where this candle trades above it and takes our stop out, it would mean that we wouldn't expect bearish price. So it invalidates our trade idea, our short idea. So we're putting our stop losses at places that would invalidate our kind of bias. And that's why on Friday, where's it gone? My stop loss was on this high, because it was also a 5-minute PSP. If I look, maybe it was a 15-minute PSP as well. No, it wasn't. And a reason why I didn't enter on a 1-minute PSP here is because we didn't have those fractal PSPs. All we had was a 5-minute PSP. And we want to see multiple PSPs form at the same time for us to use a 1-minute PSP, for it to be a high probability 1-minute PSP. And none of, like, these 1-minute PSPs are not something that you need to be using. Like on Friday, I used a 1-minute inversion fair value gap. We don't need to use a 1-minute PSP. There's no point. Something that I've decided to use after going into the charts, backtesting it, seeing how probable it was to work. But if you have not put in the work to see if something's going to work, then you're going to lack the conviction to use it. And that's when you're not going to know when it's going to. You need to see it happen for yourself to, I guess, have full conviction of something, which is going back to my point earlier. You need to be looking at the charts yourself. You can't just take someone's word for something. And that goes with anything I say as well. Just because I say something doesn't mean it's correct. You should take what I say. You should listen to what I say, take it with a grain of salt, go into the charts yourself, look for it. If I'm right, then fine. If I'm wrong, then don't use it. Don't take everything I say as the truth, I guess. So if you get a 1-minute PSP within a 5-minute PSP, is that a valid fractal PSP, or does it need to be within a higher time frame? For me, I don't consider 5-minute PSPs as a higher time frame. Best case scenario is a 15-minute PSP. Simply go into the charts, look at the charts, and you'll see how high probability these 15-minute PSPs are. And on top of that, 30-minute PSPs. When we have a 30-minute PSP within a 15-minute PSP, it's perfect. And then these 1 hour, 4 hour ones, these are all gonna add to it. But a 5-minute PSP and a 1-minute PSP on its own isn't generally something that I want to be using, to be honest, if that answers the question. I mean, it is a fractal PSP, but it's not. I would want to see, if I write it down here, the way I would use a fractal PSP to enter using a 1-minute PSP is I want to see at least a 15-minute PSP followed by a 1-minute PSP. This would be valid for me. We could have 15-minute PSP plus a 5-minute PSP plus a 1-minute PSP. This would be fine. This is all good. But this is going to be lower probability. And of course, as I said, I'll say it again, go into the charts and look at it yourself. There's no cutting corners. Yeah, cool. Yeah, there's no cutting corners in this thing. And the more we have, even higher probability it's going to be. So this is going to be high probability than this. But this is going to be the least probability. But, I mean, like, you can also kind of use the numbering kind of thing to this as well. So we have different numbers for different cycles, right? So you'll see I have like this, and I've got it explained in the Discord, in the FAQ part, the logic behind it. This will be weekly cycles, consistent T. If you have a daily cycle on the lows, this won't be enough to counter this one. But we can also, I guess I haven't really spoken about this before, but we can assign time frames these numbers as well for higher probability. So I guess we could have a 1 minute PSP as a 1, a 5 minute PSP as a 2. So 1 equals 1 minute PSP. We could have 2 equals a 5 minute PSP. And we could let's say 3 is a 15 minute PSP. This will be equal. This is equal to 3. This is equal to 4. This is equal to 6. So the higher number, the higher probability, the higher magnitude, and the more strength that the move is going to happen, if you know what I mean. So this would be most ideal. We could, for example, we could say 4 is a 1 hour PSP. So if we have a 1 hour PSP, and we have a 5 minute PSP, what would that be? That would be 6. So for example, we have this on the highs, this on the lows. Even the same logic, we may get choppy price action, I guess, if we have opposing the same. Or if we have this on the highs and then we end up having this on the lows, this could trump this. And if we add a 1 minute PSP into here, this becomes 7. This trumps this, if that makes sense. So it could look like this. So this could be up here. This could be within here. The 1 hour PSP, 5 minute PSP, 1 minute PSP, which is equal to 7, will trump this 15 minutes P, 15 minute PSP, 5 minute PSP, and 1 minute PSP, which is equal to 6. Like this, it's all just maths. Like it's an algorithm. It's all based on maths, and just simple numbers like this, simple addition can really cut out noise, I guess. So when you pair this with sequential SMT as well, say we have a 3 here, 4. This is a high probability reversal. We have the PSP numbers being trumped, also the sequential SMT numbers being trumped. This is high probability. And it's not really something I've spoken about before, but it's something that you can pay attention to. So take it with a grain of salt, back test it, see if it works. And yeah, I guess that's it for today. So yeah, just to summarize, we're expecting. Let me just move these out of the way. We can anticipate these lows to be taken on NQ and ES, and YM a potential failure swing. And then if we have enough magnitude on the lows to trump the highs, then we can potentially see all-time highs being taken again on NQ, but we'll just have to see. But for now, we want this low being taken on NQ, and ES I would imagine also does the same. So does anyone got any more questions on anything I've spoke about, or anything in the weekly review, weekly outlook and stuff? No questions. Cool. Fractal PSP form at the same time. Yes, so it's just PSPs within each other. for example, um, yeah, so for example, it's say we have a 1 hour candle. So say the 9 a.m. 1 hour candle, it closes at 10 a.m. and there's 5 minutes to go. If it's obvious that NQ is going to be, or NQ is closing bullish, is closing bearish, for example, we can enter before that candle closes and predict it's going to happen and catch the top kind of the candle. So if I draw it out here, so let's say that this is a PSP. Let's say this is a 1 hour PSP. It's 9:50. It closes in 10 minutes. The logic is that all candles have a top wick and bottom wick. So if we wanted to look for shorts, we'd be going onto the lower time frames and trying to catch this. So it's a open, low, high, close logic, right? We want to be catching this part, and we go on to the 1 minute. We can use the 1 minute time frame to do that. So PSPs within each other. Yeah, it's about catching the top, and that's how we get those kind of sniper entries. It's when everything aligns. Yeah, when everything's aligning, then that's when we can get this. And these fractal PSPs are so important for these 1 minute PSP entries. So yeah, does that answer your question? Cool. All right. I guess that's it. This should be recording. And I'll upload it as soon as I get the chance, sometime today. I'll try and do it now. But yeah, cool. All right. Have a good day, guys.